What pierces through the veil. A slightly darkened room in a place once like so many others. A place abandoned due to the conflict that raged over its purpose. A conflict fought because conversation was impossible. A place ruined, crumbling, razed, and falling apart. Yet the room still stands. For something shall always endure in the void, even if that which endures is nothing at all. Two figures sit in the room, on a pair of chairs whose nature is so old that if one were to look at them closely, they might see that the chairs could appear ready to simply crumble into ash at any moment. And yet, the chairs endure, as the room does. The figure on the left is one who once may have been called a knight in older times. In truth, he is a soldier, a weapon, an instrument of the will of others, bent to their purposes and bound by both laws and honor to serve. The figure on the right is one who once may have been called a bard in older times. In truth, she is a mirror, a reflection, a receptacle for the sights, sounds, textures, and feelings of the world, marked by curiosity. And yet, the figure on the left, despite his rigidity and unwillingness to disobey, carries the spirit of a true poet within him. He once sought to serve as much as he sought to express, to enunciate, and to verbalize the same sights, sounds, textures, and feelings that the other figure so often did. But now, he is neither a knight nor a poet, for the changing of the seasons shall always go on, regardless of any conflict fought by any knight, or any words put forth by any poet. And yet, the figure on the right, despite her desire to carry within her so many ideas, possesses the air of a true artisan. She once sought to sing as much as she sought to construct, to build, and to produce the same critical units, parts, edifices, frames, and shells that the other figure so often did. But now, she is neither a bard nor an artisan, for the changing of the seasons shall always go on, regardless of any melody belted by any bard, or any craft forged by any artisan. They sit, weary from the times they once spent at each other's proverbial throats. They themselves did not ever directly meet, speak, or fight before this moment, but as they are the last two members of any of the belligerents of this conflict, they are now the representatives of the conflict itself. All of their master's commands and their comrades' attacks are theirs to bear, to explain, to atone for, as they are now all that remains of this conflict, and yet neither is directly responsible for anything. All of either of their actions were removed from the combat that took place. The figure on the left was, in name, a mechanical and civil engineer. A soldier, yes, but not of any martial force that he could have been a part of. He was of the support structures that allowed one group of armies the ability to make headway in the battle. He was an architect, a builder, and a planner, not a combatant. The figure on the right was, in name, a communications and technology specialist. A mirror, yes, but not of any light that she herself generated. She is of the support structures that allowed another group of armies the ability to make headway in the battle. She was a channel, a bridge, and a passage, not a combatant. In truth, neither wanted to participate in the conflict, but they were called upon as their circumstances dictated it. For there are times when the inconvenient truths of the world come knocking at every door, and do not stop attempting to collect the occupants of a dwelling until their fingernails are bloody, and scratch marks cover the floor where they tried to resist the truth dragging them out the door. The figure on the left judges the figure on the right as one content to simply sit and allow information to pass through her, one seeking only to do nothing, to simply be a mouthpiece for other people. The figure on the right judges the figure on the left as one content to simply work and exert himself endlessly, one seeking only constant action, to simply continue moving and doing at the whims of other people. Both are annoyed at the other, but they each recognize the painful, facade-cutting kernel of truth in the other's likely perception of them. And so, they begin to speak. Of themselves, of their lives, of what brought them here, and of why they acted as they did. Far away, their conversation is observed, but not by anything with eyes or a body, as the universe itself decides to take an interest in the last two people left to wander this simple plane of existence. They exchange the usual pleasantries and remark on what brought them here. The worldwide disaster that had people fighting for resources, the skirmishes that became unrest, and eventually the repetition of a military action not seen since the summer of 1945. They find themselves reflecting on their lives and the time before they were parts of their country's armed forces, about what their final thoughts might have been if they had still been civilians when the bombs fell. Eventually, they begin to discuss their present situation and the minimal chances of survival they have, given that the world outside resembles a much worse version of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. He remarks that their situation is sort of odd, expressing interest in the fact that they're the last two people left standing anywhere. She states that if there's any way to describe their situation, the best word would be ironic. He says that he guesses so, remarking that it almost seems to resemble something from a dream. She starts to object, then stops herself when she realizes that she agrees with him. He asks her if she has any particular dreams that she remembers after all they've been through. She says that the only ones she can recall are the nightmares she had as a child of beastly monsters. He says that the only dreams he can recall are odd, mashed-together arrangements of moments from his life. He also says that it looks like the non-beastly creatures turned out to be much bigger monsters than any wild animal. She agrees. They both fall silent for a time. Then they resume talking. Eventually, they've been in the room long enough for the effects of thirst, starvation, and exhaustion to take hold. Not seeing the point of disregarding human contact in their final moments, they embrace each other. A while later, the building crumbles due to an intense storm in the area. Their remains are scattered in the winds. It seems that in the end, the veil here wasn't just pierced, but burned away entirely. By entropy. For something shall always endure in the void, even if that which endures makes things into nothing. Now that I've read through the story fully, I wanted to share some thoughts and just, a little bit of information about it, because this is the first video like this that I am uploading to my channel. This story, What Pierces Through the Veil, is an idea I had, I think originally, or at least the first idea of, the concept of it came. I think I thought of that, 2 years ago, something like that, around there. I mean, I enjoy stories about the apocalypse, and also conceptual stories, just about people conversing, potentially being within, a certain environment. The idea of, essentially two people talking, because that's all there's left for them to really do. I mean, that's not an original idea that I had. Other stories have touched on concepts similar to it. I just find the idea of it particularly interesting because so much of, I guess, so many stories is all about action, and speech and dialogue are important, obviously, but conversation within a story it serves to punctuate the plot and the descriptions of events, but conversation itself can also be something that you base an entire story around. Just people talking, and sharing information and experiences through them by speaking. And that was kind of what I wanted to get at here. I know it doesn't have any actual dialogue. It has descriptions of dialogue. That was a very experimental choice that I made, I will admit. And I know it's not exactly conventional, but if you know me, you know I'm also not exactly conventional either. But the reason I chose that way is because this was kind of meant to be a bit symbolic. It's not supposed to be so literal. You're not... The part of the thing I was trying to do with this story was to... The descriptions and the themes were the things I was trying to push for more. I made the choice to not include dialogue on purpose because I had the themes in mind, and that's the primary thing I wanted to get across with this story. I think it is something I will probably not attempt again. At least I don't think I'll write something completely without dialogue again unless the piece is, specifically in a situation where a lack of dialogue makes sense. Something like this, I think, is something I can get away with not putting much dialogue here or any at all. But I enjoy stories with dialogue. I know more stories with dialogue. I don't think I've really ever seen... I don't think I've read something like this. Because most every story, even if it has like a lengthy amount of descriptions in like one paragraph, there's speech at some point. I think that experimental choices like this can work. I'm proud of this piece, if I'm being honest. I know it's not for everybody. I actually originally wrote this 6, maybe 7 months ago, September, August, for a class I was taking, a fiction workshop class that I have to take for my creative writing degree. And this was specifically supposed to be written as a piece of like short or flash fiction, something you could easily, recite orally, which is what I just did. I read it out loud. And it seems like people enjoyed it. Maybe didn't quite get what was happening on first read through. And I get that. It is kind of supposed to be a little cryptic. Even though, some of the details I thought I laid them out fairly clearly, like a fairly, straightforwardly. Let's find something here. One fairly straightforward detail, or at least something that I, as the author, thought was a straightforward detail, is the repetition of a military action not seen since the summer of 1945. The mention in the next paragraph that when the bombs fell, and then after that, the world outside resembles a much worse version of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Some people in the class thought they got that it was supposed to be about, this is a world where a war already happened and nukes have already been used. Not everybody quite got that, which I kind of get, because this story is kind of wrapped up in some of the, the cryptic nature of it. And I suppose I that's what I would say about this story. I get that it's some of the cryptic stuff can overwhelm the other aspects of it. I understand that. And I think as a writer, that's something I want to improve on. I often, when I'm writing, get a really cool image or really cool idea inside my head. And then the way that I put that out there is very much taking that idea in my head and just directly putting it onto the page without a ton of consideration for how it reads, how it, sounds in people's heads, how well it's being delivered. And, that's something I could improve at. I think that's something that a lot of writers develop as they go along, and I am certainly still going along. I would not venture to call myself good at writing yet. People have given me praise, as in they've enjoyed some of my stuff before, but I know I definitely still have a lot to learn. There will be more stories uploaded to my channel. Not all of them will be like this, just this short. Some of them will be actual stories with dialogue and that are easier to understand. And expect some more of this. I hope to get back to creating more videos this year in 2025. And thanks for watching. It's been Tom from the Orange Jungle Tree Sheep, and I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.